Hello, and welcome to this episode of Self-Made. I'm your host, Dee Brown CEO. Joining me today is Jeremy Simpson, the president and CEO of Systems Technology. Also on the panel today is Randy Chestang. He's a retiring commander in the Navy, as well as the executive director of Loraine Enterprises. Gentlemen, welcome to Self-Made. I'm glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Guys, and both of you all have been very successful in your respective careers. Randy, with you rising to the top ranks of the military, and Jeremy, with you running a national data and communication company. Mm-hmm. But I want to know a little bit more about your early years. Tell me about where you grew up and what your childhood was like.
Okay, well, I came from a small town called Bassfield, Mississippi. It's not on the map, no stoplight, no Walmart, no McDonald's, anything like that. Schools, elementary was 1st through 5th, and then the high school was 6th through 12th. And 50-50 was the breakdown, between the people there as far as diversity. And a few people have come out of there doing great, in NFL and other things like that. But for me, mostly, my parents raised 5 kids, and I'm the eldest of 5.
Jeremy, what about you?
So for me, growing up in Clarksdale, Mississippi, the only son of my mom, 2 sisters, growing up in a small town, for me, that drive to be an entrepreneur started with my dad. He had a construction company, and I knew that was something that I didn't want to do on hot roofs and things like that, shingles and things like that. So I wanted to take something and do something different. But as a child, more so, I was kind of raised with my grandmother. She kind of nurtured and kept me, protected me, and things like that. So I have kind of what you say is an old soul in some perspective. But childhood, the typical small town, Clarksdale. I mean, we did have a Walmart and we did have a grocery store. However, it was fun. It was fun. Safe and fun.
What about college? Where did you go to college?
First 2 years I went to Coahoma Community College in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Then I went to Alcorn State University, the Alcorn State University. So I know we have a Southern gentleman here.
I am.
So for me, those 2 institutions were the foundation for me to understand what it's like to be a student and to determine your purpose. And you had to be able to determine your purpose because you had to define a major, which allowed you to determine which field of studies you wanted to go in and what you wanted to pursue in life.
Randy?
So before I talk about my university, go back to why I became the person that I am, right? So eldest of 5 in a small town, my dad worked real hard, many jobs as he could to take care of 5 kids and a wife. Yeah. And I saw the struggle, but I saw him never stopping. And at the same time, we traveled a lot because his parents were from Alabama and my mom's parents were from Ohio. So we got a chance to see something different than just our normal environment of Bassfield. And, most people ended up staying in Bassfield or just ventured out just a little bit outside of that to maybe Hattiesburg or Jackson. I knew that there was more. I wanted to do more. And so what did I do? I said, I know I can't lean on my parents to go to college. All of my parents went to Alcorn. Both my parents, my grandparents, my brothers, my sister, aunts, some cousins, and even a nephew.
They're smart individuals.
But for me, I didn't have a scholarship, so I had to figure out how to go, and I chose the Navy route to do that. And so the Navy afforded me the opportunity to go to college on full scholarship with Navy ROTC. And so I took that And the doors that opened up from there wasn't Alcorn. It ended up being Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where we remain the standard for HBCUs. But I chose that. And that's where I kind of found my footing. I found my family, that's like family, but not family, that's friends to this day. And although I have love for Alcorn because I was essentially made there,
right.
Southern is my home.
But Jeremy, you own Systems Technology.
Right.
You are doing work across the United States.
Right.
What motivated you to start the company?
What motivated me to start the company, it was kind of two things. One is I graduated from college and I started working for the Airport Authority. Initially started working in project cost accounting, which my major being mathematics and applied science, computer technology. So for me, on the mathematical side of things, my task was to manage the third runway project, which was like a $250 million project. In managing that, moving over to transitioning to contract compliance. And of course, as you know, in contract compliance, especially on the federal government side, I got a chance to look at individuals that look like me, that ran businesses that were doing very well. So as I said earlier, what you see is what you believe, and what you believe is what you become. So that motivated me, along with, being in the arena of doing technology and providing technology services on the side, motivated me to want to do this full time because it was a passion. Along with a story I can tell you is that my son at 9 months was diagnosed with what you call a vascular ring, and he had to have surgery. And during that time, although I was working, it was still a rough financial period. And with that being a rough financial period, to me, I said that there has to be more in life. There has to be something else that you can do to either supplement the income to cover medical bills and cover things like that. I just didn't know that it would turn out to be what it is that it is today with our company.
Right. And so, Randy, obviously you took the military route, but the interesting part of your story is that you rose to the rank of commander. And that is a rank that's not easily achieved, and it's even less likely that you will become a commander if you are an African American. So you have broken a number of standards and barriers to get there. And so I want to talk to you about, just that process, because I think we had a talk offset, and we talked about the fact that if you join the military and you stay in the military, you're gonna give 100% because they're gonna make sure you give 100%.
That's right.
But you still won't be a commander.
That's right.
Just because you come and do 100%. And so
right.
one of the things I always talk about is that in order to be highly successful, you have to give more than 100%.
That's
because
right.
everyone that's out here trying to do something that they are really passionate about, they're going to give you 100%, but that's the standard to just do everything you're supposed to do. So in order for you to rise to the level of commander in the military, you had to go above and beyond. There were some things that you did that the other soldiers didn't do. So talk to me about the process.
Oh yeah, so our process, I'm a surface warfare officer by discipline, which means I'm one of the guys that you see out on the ships. We're doing missile employment, big guns, safety at sea, navigation, things like that. We're moving those ships through the water. At the same time, we have people that we're responsible for, those systems and equipment that operate that ship at sea. We're running that. And so it's a difficult, complex process that you're on top of 24 hours a day. It's not 1 hour out of that day that somebody's not watching what's going on with that ship. And as a leader, as an officer, you're responsible for that. And so starting out, we're all what we call ensigns. That's the lowest rank as an officer. And at that point, you are unqualified. You have not demonstrated the mastery to be what we identify as surface warfare officers. So you have essentially 18 months to qualify in that discipline to prove yourself worthy to wear that pin. And so you step through that process, and that's where a lot of us get washed out right away. There are many of us that matriculate through the HBCU systems, through Naval Academy and other sourcings, like Officer Candidate School and such. Many of us start out, but it's very difficult, it's very hard, and many complex challenges that you face to try to figure out how you can navigate that and qualify. Not only do you have to know the material, but then you have to demonstrate it in a board process. At least that's what it was for me back in the day. It's a little different now, but back then, you had to follow the booklet we call PQS, Personnel Qualification Standard. Follow that and then step through a board process and communicate what you know and demonstrate it, in practice and in proficiency. And so once you do that and they find you worthy, then you can wear the pin. But half the people get washed out there, and then the work begins. You are the guy who wears the pin now. And that's 18 months on standard. Yeah. Most people will get it at 18 months, some before, some after, many not at all. And so you wear that pin and now you demonstrate it. And so you're the guy that's teaching the new people how to do it. And as you matriculate through surface warfare, as you progress through the ranks, you become a lieutenant junior grade. And now you're responsible for more. You're responsible for more people, more systems, more equipment. The captain of the ship gives you more authority, more responsibility, so that you can grow to become him. At that time, more people are getting washed out because as each one of us are given 100%, 100% isn't good enough. You have to do more. And so what is that requires more? When other people are sleeping, somebody's got to be up. Yeah. When other people are taking breaks, somebody's got to keep going. When some people take leave or vacation, somebody's got to fill in that gap. When some people are not holding what the requirement is, somebody's got to step in. Those are the people that matriculate on up to lieutenant junior grade, to lieutenant commander, to captain, and then just even less than 5% make it to admiral. It's a very, very, very small percentage, and you're just blessed at that point if you get a star. And I just happen to know just a few of those.
Wow. Jeremy, you obviously took a different path in the corporate world, starting your own company and having to get contracts and grow a business. Tell me about Systems Technologies and what you all are doing and some of the challenges you have faced.
So for us, we're an information solution provider. So we have two facets of our business. One is the IT solution portion, which deals more so on the networking, data analytics, consulting, and things like that. Then we have an infrastructure solution portion of our business, which deals with CCTV, networking, access control, CCTV, as far as cities and municipalities where we're putting cameras on poles, where we're doing construction monitoring, where we're doing things with speed cameras and things like that within the several cities where we're doing a lot of support. For us, what we're doing around the country is various things. We're doing all those things that I mentioned, from structured cabling, access control, CCTV. We're doing construction monitoring, and we're doing all of those things. We're providing services to corporations like Nike, providing services for groups like First Student, P3. We're providing services for Carrier, a number of companies that we're providing services for, and municipalities. So our group expands our services from Oregon to California to New York to Pennsylvania to Florida, and we have projects that we're taking on and that we're actively involved with all over the country.
So Randy, I know that as an officer in the Navy, you've had a number of different assignments, some of which are top secret. I know that you have had, War College, those sorts of things. So talk to me about, like, number one, War College, what it is, what your experience there, and number two, some of the interesting assignments that are unclassified that you can discuss, or one of the interesting assignments.
Okay, so Navy War College is is a way for officers, not only Navy, but all military service officers and departments that are affiliated with Department of Defense to go and work on what we call joint professional education. Okay, so there are 2 levels. There's joint professional education 1 and joint professional education 2. I've done both. Phase 1, part 1, you will earn a master's. For me, it was in national security and strategic studies, which I actually work in right now in my current job as an assistant professor at National Defense University. So I teach that to international students and active service members from all disciplines. And then phase 2 is another level of that, where you can go ahead and learn more, and the military and Department of Defense looks to use you more because you have that extra layer of education, and that's important. And then let's talk about some of the experiences that I had, some of the stuff. I've served as an operations officer. That was a very fun job in which you're responsible for every evolution that happens on board the ship. You know, you design it, you plan it, and you execute it. So if the ship is getting underway and heading out to sea, you're responsible for that plan. You know, all pieces to it. And then every step that's associated with it, where you're going, what time you're going to be there, what you're going to do while you're doing that. If somebody's getting on the ship, if the helicopter is flying, if a plane is coming in, you're responsible for that. And that was a very fun job. That job, you really got to understand what the captain was thinking and what the captain wanted, because you worked with him very close. You understood, you know, what he was comfortable with and what he wasn't comfortable with. And so I really loved that job, and it made me want to become a captain. So I did that, and the next step, I became the executive officer, in which, you know, you're executing all the captain's ideas and thoughts while he's focused on making sure that ship is safe at sea. You know, and I was able to do that twice. Once on board a ship, you know, where we actually did a 10-month deployment, and we were out in the Gulf, and we got called to shoot Tomahawk missiles. And that's not something everybody has the experience to do, but I did. And I know that we talked offline, and you know, you said something about you know, responsibility comes with some type of requirement or something like that, something to that effect. And so shooting those Tomahawk missiles, yes, something came with that, you know. And I was a target on my back, you know, after that. And I had to live with that. I had some help come in and support me, make sure I was covered down. But we did what we were supposed to do out there. We did it safely, and came back with everybody we left with, which was major. And then I was able to do executive officer a second time. And everywhere we went around the world, we brought everybody back. Fortunately, I was picked up to finally be the captain, and I went out and did that, and safely took care of my people. So those were the ultimate things.
So to your point, yeah, like I said earlier, to whom much is given, much is required.
Yes.
Right? So that responsibility is not just something that you harbor and you take in as yourself and keep the knowledge and all the training and understanding. The requirement is to share it, to teach someone else. And back to your point about the challenges in our business was just trying to get contracts, trying to get opportunities. Of course, you have major companies that are able to provide similar services. And so in this arena, they kind of box you out as a minority firm, and they try to partner with individuals that don't look like me or you on projects. So the challenge was to try to find a partner, not only utilize what systems they have from a NWBE standard program, and use those programs to your advantage so that you can build your portfolio. Once we were able to build our portfolio, then we were one of those firms that not only did major firms look to partner with, but we were able to take on projects individually as primes.
Right. So Randy, now I know that you're going to retire from the military in a few short months, actually.
Yes.
And that you have launched Loraine Enterprise, and you are the executive director. Talk to me about this venture.
So Loraine Enterprises is a management consulting company that my wife, Lori, and I started. And we did that because you acquire a lot of skills in the Navy, especially when it comes to crisis management, organizational structure, team building, talent identification, managing people, leadership, all those types of things. Can nobody take that away from you? And it's knowledge that you can pass on if you use it. And so we sat down one day and tried to figure out how could we leverage this skill set that we both have. And we came up with this idea and we started it. And and it wasn't even a year ago that we started this, but fortunately, right away within a month, we was able to communicate with a client and sign a contract. And so at this point, we just waiting to fire off and get started. But that process is not something that you can control. But the good thing is it's there, and we're ready to work, and it's going to be something special once everything gets rolling.
Now, interesting dynamic to you and your wife is that your wife is also in the military.
Yes.
And your wife is prominently featured on just about all the U.S. Navy posters. She's the female officer that's on those posters.
Yeah.
But just tell me about your wife and her military career briefly.
Oh, so her background is different than mine, and she is what we would say the face of the Navy. When she was a lieutenant, they needed somebody to kind of showcase diversity in the Navy, and they ended up taking her. And she took the pictures, and everywhere you go and you look at Navy, you see her all around. And it's amazing to see because she's like a celebrity in the Navy. And if you happen to know her or know me, then you know Lori. Yeah. That's the way we see it. But for her, she started out as a nuclear officer, which is special in itself. Not many people understand nuclear technology and that type of science.
Right.
That tells you that her skill set is very, very, very rare. Yes. And she was able to go out and execute that and run naval reactors safely. And it was very hard duty. And then she did other things in the Navy, still quite different than me. Yeah. But at the same time, we're both commanders. And so currently she's doing her assignment in the Pentagon, whereas I teach at National Defense University, which is two totally different things.
But you did a stint at the Pentagon, right?
I did a stint at the Pentagon.
What was your role there?
So there, at first, I started out working on missile defense, essentially. I was doing that, and then that project kind of went away, and then I moved into the maintenance piece of the ships because there has to be money appropriated to keep those ships up and running, and Department of Defense has a budget that they allocate towards maintenance. I was one of those guys looking at all the cracks and crevices to make sure that those ships would stay afloat so that we could go out and execute the mission worldwide.
Wow. Okay. Jeremy, what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur or a person that's considering starting their own business? What would be your advice to them?
My advice to them would be, first, when you first start out being an entrepreneur, it's going to be tough. But most of all, you can't always do it initially for the money. It has to be something that you love. You have to have a passion. And sometimes it's okay to start out in the corporate world because you take that experience from the boardrooms, from being in finance or being in business analysts or business analysts or things like that. You take that experience and then you can transition it because I always believe that knowledge is transferable. So from that aspect, you got to understand that it has to be a passion of yours. You have to put in the work because there is a story behind every executive that sits in a seat. He has a story, you have a story, I have a story. And people talk about history, it's his story. It's his story. That you have to understand that drive, sometimes you may run into challenges, but if you believe that it's not about the money and you believe that it's not about chasing the revenue, but chasing what you believe, right, then I believe you'll be successful because I believe that what you do best takes less effort. That's your passion, that's your gift, and just believe in that gift, because it's going to be tough, it's going to be some rocky roads, it's going to be some challenges, it's going to be difficult, and not every day is going to be the same.
Right, and what I would add to that is, and this is to piggyback off of what you said about realizing that you don't have to, it can't be about the money. And so one of the things that I've seen with business owners is that, number one, once you sign your name to a contract, your word is your bond, right? And so win, lose, or draw, you have to see that contract through, because you're going to sometimes sign up for something and realize once you get into it that you didn't price it right, that you underbid or you priced it too low or whatever. And so I think character is critical in the business world. And then finally, sometime in order to advance your organization and your business, you have to do some things for free.
You do.
Sometimes the opportunities come through you actually latching on to things that you don't get compensated for. But if you take that journey, it leaves you in a better place. And so I've seen so many people lose opportunities because they don't understand that you can do some things for free and actually advance yourself. But gentlemen, thank you guys for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
And it's been a great episode. To my viewers, thank you for watching. And remember, without you, there's no me.